Right. Thank you all for joining in. First of all, very warm welcome to this wonderful college for your MBA course. Let's everyone fold their hands. Take a three deep breath. I'm going to chant a prayer. You don't have to worry about that. The meaning of the prayer is taking blessings from all of the teachers who have taught the secrets of ancient wisdom. That will be prayer on my behalf. And all of you can just take a three deep breath and relax yourself. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. All of you can open your eyes. So our very first session, our very first topic, we have 10 topics as part of this course. For every session, you will have some exercise, we'll have some role plays to be done, some discussions to be done. And after the session gets over, you will have MCQs to be solved. And at the end of your semester or quarter, you will have some group work or essays to be written as a part of your assessment. So before I begin with this topic of proactive leadership, let me begin with asking all of you, what is the difference between a leader and a manager? What is the difference between a leader and a manager? Anyone, please? By the way, is there a difference or no difference? Yes? So what is the difference? There's nothing right and wrong answer. You can just try it out. Your interaction will help you know where you are. So accordingly, I'll frame my presentation. Who is the leader and who is the manager? Or what's the difference between these two? Okay, a leader is somebody who sets the vision, takes the team together. Manager gets the work done. Okay, this is important. Before I get into this topic of proactive leadership, let's define certain terminologies. Anything else about leader versus manager? What is the difference between leader and a manager? Anything else? How many of you would like to become a leader when you grow up in your professional life? Raise your hand. Nobody wants to be a manager or what? How many of you would want to become a manager when you grow up? Okay. Well, it looks like all of you have a little more biasness towards leadership. So please define leadership. What leadership is? Majority of you gave your vote for becoming a leader, but not a manager, which means there is a difference between two. So please tell us, what's the difference between leader and manager? Leader gets to lead, leader gets all the privileges, all the opportunities, and everyone else has to forcefully follow him. Is that what leadership means? Yes, please. Okay, not that manager cannot be a good leader, but a leader is always a manager, but manager is not necessarily always a leader. That's a proper definition. Thank you for that. How many of you have over here have heard the terminology servant leadership? Servant leadership. Have you heard this terminology? Okay, this is becoming a very famous concept in the management studies, at least in the West. I'm pretty sure you will have one or two topics on this topic as part of your MBA studies. All right, how many of you before joining your MBA college have had a professional background, have worked? How many of you have, before joining MBA college, had worked outside? Can you raise your hand? How many of you had a professional experience? Okay, very few. So all of you just coming from a college life, entering into another college like that? Okay, gives me good information. All right, so there are two types of leaderships. One is called proactive, second is called reactive. So all of you budding leaders, those who want to be a leader, do we know what is proactive leader and what is reactive leader? Any clues about it? Even if not, even just we know the word proactive and reactive, we can sense the meaning of it. Reactive leader is somebody who has a firefighting skills, which means as and when problem comes, he and she would handle that situation. However, the proactive leader is the one who has a vision, who has a foresight, and he plans for the future. And because he plans for the future, he often takes risk, which a reactive leader will not take it. Now, let me ask this question to you. What would be, as you join MBA college, there would be a lot of subject matter taught to you. Okay, maybe let me put it this way. Have you noticed, probably you came from some engineering background or some college background, you're going to go to MBA, you'll graduate from MBA. All of you would be taught same courses, probably by the same teachers. But if you look out at the world, when you grow up, not everyone, when you enter a professional life, would remain at the same stature. Different people will grow to different degrees. Yes or no? So, have you ever thought what is the differentiating factor when all of us or all of you got the same education, read the same books, but why somebody became more successful as compared to another? I'm not talking about in terms of manager, I'm talking in terms of leadership now. In terms of leadership, what is the differentiating factor? What makes one leader more successful than another leader? If it is only about knowledge, probably all getting the same knowledge. Any thoughts about it? Or have you ever thought like this? What is the differentiating factor? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, please. Okay, very nice. Mindset, efforts. Okay. How many of you had an experience that I often put a lot of efforts, but I don't get as much success as I deserve? Please raise your hands. So it's not all about efforts, but mindset, I'll take it. Thank you for that. You had something to say? Attitudes. Can you define that, please, a little bit? Positive attitude, positive attitude. Let go attitude. Get going attitude. Okay. All right, all right. Okay. Please raise your hand so I know from where the sound is coming. Ownership. Okay, very nice. Thank you so much. Yes, please. Consistency. Thank you. Wonderful. Yes. Vision. Absolutely. Thank you. Courage. Thank you. Yes. Capability. Adaptability. Okay, wonderful adjectives are coming around now. Strategy. Okay. Clarity. Wonderful clarity of the vision. Yeah, yeah. Well, you come front. A lot of space here. I can hear you well. Dedication and determination. D square. Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah, you yourself. Confidence and takes responsibility. Fantastic. All is correct. What about if I just paraphrase all of your answers in such a way? Success, not that others would be failure, but in terms of success over a competitor depends on how fast and how accurate you make the decision. But when you go out in the competitive world, more or less, if you're in the same market, there's a plenty of competition. It's about who cracks it, who makes the right decision. And let me start with giving you one very successful case study or a failure case study to help you understand this concept to begin with it. So, oh, it's over here. Yeah. This is Stephen Ellop. Anyone knows Stephen Ellop? Okay, probably not. How many of you have used Nokia mobile set? Maybe some of you, but when we were in college 20 years ago, 25 years ago, everyone used to use Nokia handset. So he was the CEO of a very, very successful mobile company by the name of Nokia. This company was from Finland. 7% of that country's GDP would alone come from Nokia. And they would make the most robust, sturdy keypad mobiles. This is 2013, he crying in a press conference. Until 2010, Nokia's market valuation was more than $55 billion. Fast forward 3 years, 2013, Nokia was purchased by Microsoft for less than $8 billion. And now for us, $1 billion is more, but if you understand the comparison to $55 billion to $8 billion, it crashed. There's hardly any value. On top of it, just prior to this press conference where he cried, a day before, this gentleman, Stephen Ellop, he fired 25,000 employees from Nokia. This is alone in Finland. 25,000 employees were fired. The market valuation reduced from $55 billion to around $8 billion, $7.5 billion. And he, during the press conference, made a very interesting statement. He said, please pay attention. This is a ton of event. And he said, we never did anything wrong. And he's crying in front of the press, across his board and everyone. He said, we means, in other words, I never did wrong, or we never did wrong. In other words, why we failed, I have no answer for it. This is what happens with the reactive leadership. Now, why he failed? Because in the same market, somebody entered, and he was characterized by proactive attitude. So this is a case of reactive leadership. And let me tell you what one very famous management guru had to speak about the situation. And he said, they, means Nokia, missed out on learning. They missed out on changing, and thus they lost the opportunity at hand to make it big. By 2007, more than 90% of mobile market was with Nokia. Certain portion was with Sony. These are the 2-3 companies. After 2007, everything changed. We'll come to that, what happened in 2007. Not only did they miss the opportunity to earn big money, they even lost their chance for survival. It's a very important case study, and I'm pretty sure as part of your MBA coursework, you will come across. If not, I will be introducing many case studies like this. Now, why did he lost everything? In 2007, something disruptive happened. 9th January 2007, like every year, Apple would have their annual conference led by Steve Jobs. I was in America back then. I was doing my research in the domain of mobile technology, and Nokia was my first choice after graduating to join. And the second choice for me to join was BlackBerry. Remember BlackBerry? So we talk about 2005, 2007, 2004, somewhere around 2003, 4, BlackBerry was launched. It's a Canadian company, and Nokia was a Finland company. And BlackBerry had taken over the enterprise network, the market. If you're in a company, if you're a corporate, then the company will give you BlackBerry mobile set because it was secured, it allowed email, everything, which Nokia didn't have it. Nokia was famous amongst the masses. So by 2007 or 2006, there were only 2 mobile phones which were in the market, Nokia and BlackBerry, and they had their own domains, mass, consumer, and the enterprise. Steve Jobs entered 2007, 9 January. This was a very unique conference that he had where his product launched failed. This is a very famous and iconic photo where this is the first iPhone mobile or the smartphone which he launched, and he went on the dais and he said, I'm today going to introduce you something so phenomenal. I'm going to touch and you will see response happening. And he touched, nothing happened. And the first launch event failed. June 29th, which means 6 months down the line, then he had another event. This was the first time Apple had 2 conferences in a single year. He had another event on 29th June, and that's the time in 2007, he successfully launched iPhone. At the moment iPhone, the touchpad mobile was launched, the whole market changed by the end of 2007. 2008, around that time, Android was released by Google and other companies. The Samsung got into the foray of making smartphones. Then HTC came. Then many other vendors came. By 2009, the first company that lost the market was BlackBerry. And I remember I graduated in 2008 and had an offer from BlackBerry. And I was just thinking, its market share is going down. I don't know. And by 2009, they fired most of their employees. I'm not even discussing the case of BlackBerry because BlackBerry was not as huge as Nokia. Now, probably you don't see any BlackBerry mobile phones, right? There's no smartphone by BlackBerry in the market anyways. So by 2000, 2011, BlackBerry went out of the market. And by 2013, Nokia went on the market. Why? Because this gentleman, he launched a product which was very unique. And it is very peculiar to his nature and personality. 1984, he launched Mac desktop, which caused havoc in the computer world. 2001, fast forward, Jan 9th, he launched a product by the name of iPod that caused disruption in the music industry. Prior to that, if in case you remember, you probably would be very young, Sony had a Walkman that ruled the market for over 4 decades. They made a product called Walkman and everyone used to say, I'm having a Walkman. Such was the success story of Walkman. After 2001, Nobody remembered Walkman. After 2001, everyone remembered iPods. Now, how did this guy launch something which was so unique at that point of time? And please remember, he didn't even had any mobile phone or smartphone. This is the first piece he launched, which means he started from way behind in the market. He was not even in the mobile industry. He was in the computer, iPod, iPad, whatnot. How did he enter it? A little brief story, I'll not go into details just to help you understand the difference between reactive and proactive. It is somewhere between around 2005, 2005 mid. He had an employee in his office who had, blindness or some issue with the eyes, who couldn't read properly. And that employee had got a device in the company. Now he could operate the computer. So there was one small scale company or small industry which had created the first smart touch device. For the blind people, they can touch and they can interact with the computer. Steve Jobs happened to be passing around that area. And he saw the gentleman who had an issue with the eyes or probably was blind. Now, for the first time, he was able to operate computer. Then and there, he had an idea. Oh, really? You can have a smart touch technology. And from there, he started having this vision where I can use this infrastructure or framework of a smartphone. How can I create a market out of it? And 2006, he had an idea. And 2006, he created the whole framework by himself. He had 6 separate teams working. And none of the team knew what other teams are doing. And none of the teams knew what is the end goal of this exercise. And when the project, the launch date came close by, which means 2007 January, 6 months prior to that, none of them even went to their home. They stayed in the office for 6 months straight and worked and launched this project. This is called as, of course, I'm not talking in terms of his behavior, the employees, I'm talking in terms of his vision, seeing the opportunity where it never existed. And by the way, the infrastructure or the framework which was created by Steve Jobs to launch this iPhone further went and created products like drones. Drones uses a smart infrastructure or same framework, smart watches, all your gadgets in the smart homes, and also the driverless vehicles. They all depend on the framework on which iPhone was built. Now, one little hint, he saw a blind man operating a computer through some touchpad, and look how the technology have manifested. This is what means by proactive. So, very important question can be asked here. You know, we had BlackBerry CEO, we had the Nokia CEO who were leading the market, and we had Steve Jobs who entered the market afresh. They all had the same situation, same competition, same opportunity, whatnot. How come they all reacted differently? It's a matter of response. Steve Jobs saw an opportunity where others thought nobody ever going to challenge our position. And they continued making that same keypad mobiles after keypad mobiles. So how it matters, that's where it brings us to a subject matter where Bhagavad Gita tells us something very interesting on this concept. So this is brief, what we're going to discuss. Let's start with it. Imagine, let's start with some hypothesis here. Imagine you are a new marketing head of a company. Okay, you've just joined 3 months ago. You have been called by the CEO for an urgent meeting. You entered the boardroom, very tense environment. You have a finance head, you have a technical head, you have human resources head, different heads of the department sitting there, the companies are sitting there, and you are the newest employee and the head of marketing or whatever. The CEO enters, he is extremely angry, and he begins to scream at the top of his voice. Why the market shares are going down? Why our company is failing? What's wrong with us? And he begins to ask everyone, and everyone begins to give their answer. Imagine you are the last person he picks up, and you give your reason why, going on. I mean, what reason can you give when hardly 3 months ago you have joined? You have no role to play in the market share of the company. And you may just say, I've just joined the company, I'm just getting to know what's going on. And because you're the last person to speak, and the CEO is already angry, imagine he take out the cumulative frustration of everyone on you. And he downloads his frustration, anger on you. What are the possible ways can you react? How you react going to determine a lot of things. The environment of the meeting and your future also. You know, how you react. Let me give you an example. What possible responses? So Socrates was a Greek or European philosopher. This is several centuries before. Now, he was a pretty cool-headed guy. He would have his friends come to his house and he would spend a lot of time talking to them about the philosophy of life. One day, his sweet wife came to the room where the meeting was happening and she busted out. You useless fellow, you jobless fellow, you do nothing, you spend your whole day talking here, you're wasting time, there's nothing to eat, blah, blah, blah. She screamed. Socrates didn't say anything. She busted out her anger, she walked away. And Socrates continued his conversation with his friends. After a few minutes, he realized the friends are feeling uneasy. The whole environment, the energy have changed. So he told his friends, okay, looks like you're uncomfortable sitting here. Why don't we go out of the house? There's a garden outside, we'll go and sit there. The friends said, yes, fantastic, let's do it. So the friends and the Socrates got up. They came out of the house. He turned around, he locked his door. And the moment he turned around, immediately a whole bucket of water came crushing on his head. So Socrates was completely drenched with water. Immediately everyone looked up and there was a sweet wife with a bucket in her hand who just poured a bucket full of water. How would you respond? You know, situation could be anything. And I'm taking one another extreme example. How did Socrates responded? And he was the coolest guy. And how did he respond? Let's take a look. And he said, sometimes ago, you know, the friends are looking at Socrates, what he's going to say. And Socrates said, sometimes ago, it was thundering. And now it's raining. That's all. Like all of you are smiling, similarly, all other friends smiled. And immediately, all that tense movement diluted. Everyone was relaxed. They went ahead and continued for what reason they came out of the house. You see that how he changed the situation? Now, imagine if Socrates here would have screamed or shouted back at his wife, the friends would not have continued conversation. They would have felt really uneasy about it. So it all depends on our response to the situations. Maybe let me ask you a question over here. How many of you haven't had an experience where you saw somebody giving different responses to a similar situation? Have you ever noticed that? Maybe somebody is put into a similar situation but reacts differently. Sometimes anger, sometimes they let it go. How many of you have seen that? Please raise your hands. How many of you have seen that somebody reacting differently in a similar situation? All right. How many of you have observed with yourself reacting differently in a similar situation? My question to all of you is, why? Have you ever wondered about it? Why do I react differently in the same situation? The modern science teaches us, or medicine or medical science teaches us, we're nothing just a bundle of chemicals. We're nothing but RNA and DNA, genetic code. Now, if we are just bundle of chemicals, as much as a laptop is a bundle of chemical, you know, when it is put into a particular situation, it has a fixed response. Not only this laptop, but every laptop of this make is going to give the same response. Now here, forget about all of us giving the same response. Even we don't give the same response in a similar situation every time. What is the science behind response? And can I control my response? Can I? Yes. How do you control your response? That yes and no binary answer is pretty good. Well, how do you control your response? Any thoughts? How can you? Yes, please. Huh? Calmness. If you are calm, then your response will be accordingly. But if you're not calm, you don't have a control on response because you're not always calm. So what influences? We'll talk about that shortly. All right. So this is what the situation. So question here is, what determines our responses? Yes, calmness or frustration will give you particular kind of response, but you can influence and change your responses. We have the privilege to move from the reactive to proactive. I'll tell you what's the thing with the reactive mode and proactive. Let's begin to take a look at it. Let me give you one example. Let's see if you're able to decode it. So there were three brothers who witnessed a similar situation. Let's name these three brothers as Satto, Rajjo, and Tamo. Okay? Three brothers, Satto, Rajjo, Tamo. And all the three brothers have the same profession. टोपी पहनाना लोगों को मतलब वो वाली टोपी पहनाना नहीं they were the cap seller they had a business of selling a cap. So one fine day they packed their bags, filled it up with a cap, and they went into three different directions. So every day they'll have to cross a forest, and across the forest they'll go to a particular village and a town, and they'll sell off the caps. So their wives had packed their lunch for them. And somewhere around after walking for 2 to 3 hours, when it came around noon, 12:30, they thought, okay, it's time for taking a lunch. They opened their lunch box, they ate their lunch, and they thought, we have been walking for a while. It's such a nice tree under a shade. Why don't we take a nap for a few minutes? So all these three brothers in three different parts of the forest took a nap, slept for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatnot. When all three of them woke up, to their utter shock, all the caps were gone. All the caps were gone. And when they looked hither and thither where the caps, and they realized the forest, the part of the forest that they decided to take rest, had a lot of monkeys. And monkeys took all the caps and they were now sitting on the branch. So my question to all of you is, what possible responses can you have? What response can you have? Your caps are not there, your livelihood depends on it. Your dinner depends on it. You have to make an earning out of it. Now you don't have a cap. What are the possible responses? Any quick thoughts? Then I'll tell you what three responses the three brothers gave. And these are three universal responses. There could be little permutation, combination, but there are three distinct responses. Anyone, what response can you probably give if you see your livelihood missing? अब मिल गया ना वो बंदर के पास है, सच खत्म हो गई. Search is over. You see monkeys have it. What will you do next? Say, raise your hand and then answer. Yes, please. Okay, wonderful. That's a good answer. You try to trade it. Monkeys like bananas. Maybe get a banana. Okay, good. Thank you for that. What else? Yes, please. You get angry and probably take a look at some stones and start throwing at the monkey. Maybe they'll get frightened. How many of you think that's a good answer? Please raise your hand. Well, you don't have to say yes or no. How many of you agree? How many of you agree this is a good idea? Take a stone and start throwing at the monkeys. They'll get frightened and they'll throw the caps. How many will do that? Please raise your hand. No. If you don't do it, I'm not asking for. How many of you will do it? Raise your hand. अरे तुम तो खड़ा करो जिसने जवाब दिया है. आप ही का आंसर था. Okay. How many of you would trade with the monkey? Okay. What if there is no bananas, no apples? What would you trade? खुद की कैब निकालो. बहुत बुद्धिमान लोग हैं यहाँ पे. Very good. Thank you for that. Anything else you could potentially do? Well, thank you. You may stick to the two responses. I'll tell you three responses generally people have in their life. Yes, please. Perfect. So it's a thoughtful answer. This was just a very simple situation to help you understand three distinct responses we can have. You may not necessarily face this, but see if you ever reacted in a manner where three brothers going to react. All right? You may relate it to your past in terms of your responses. Let's see what are the three distinct responses. So let's start with the Tamo, the youngest brother, Tamo. Now, when he got up, when he saw the caps were missing, he began to cry. मेरे संगी बुरा क्यों होता है? I am always a victim. ये दुनिया मेरे तरफ ही सब कुछ बुरा करती है. Life is useless. This business is useless. He kicks his feet on the ground, he cries, and he walks away. How many of you say this is a possible response? I'm not saying you will do it, but it's a possible response? Yes or no? Okay, this is one distinct response. And it represents something which I'll tell you in a while. The second response is from Rajjo. He becomes, when he wakes up, he sees the caps have been stolen by the monkeys. He becomes extremely angry, no thinking. He starts abusing. He starts hurling abuses to the monkey, starts to frighten the monkey. When he sees the monkeys are not responding, then whatever he finds on the ground, he lifts it, starts throwing at the monkeys. Now, monkeys are more smarter in terms of dealing with this kind of a thing. They jump from one branch to another. This guy gets nothing in return. He curses them, and with frustration, he walks away. How many of you agree this is also a possible response? Yes or no? And the third response is by Satto. He wakes up, he realizes the caps are missing, as the lady over there said, very nice answer, and he begins to think, hey, I have my business to do. And here my livelihood has been taken away. How can I get my livelihood back? And then he realizes the monkeys are good imitators. And then he realizes that his own cap is still there with him in his pocket. He takes out the cap, like the gentleman said there. He takes out the cap, he waves in the sky, and he throws it. Seeing him, all the monkeys waves their cap, throws it, and he went around collecting all the caps, goes on to his regular business, makes a living, and come back. How many of you agree this is also a possible response? These are three different types of responses that Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about in to Arjuna. In these three responses, let's go back to proactive and reactive. Which responses are the reactive responses? Which are the reactive responses? The first one means he begins to cry and says, I'm a victim, walks away. What other response is reactive? Second, becomes angry, frustrated, no thinking about the solution, he goes away. Which one is the proactive? Of course, the third one, where he thinks and then makes a decision. So in this regard, two things we can learn, and we'll go ahead and tell you more about it. First thing, we got to understand, we don't often have a control on the situations. Imagine you start for our office and you have an important office meeting, but at the Hinjewadi or let's say at a highway outside, if there's a traffic jam, can you do anything about it? The situations are not often in our control. Unfortunately, we get caught up with the situation and we start fighting with the situation and we waste our time. This is a reactive approach. But the proactive approach, rather than struggling with the situation, is to look at the solution and the positive. Like somebody over here said, proactive means positive attitude. This is what means by positive attitude. So we don't have control, but we do have control on our responses. So here is the first concept for today. For every situation, if you want, you can mark it for yourself. Try to remember as you function in your life. For every situation, which means a stimuli, there is a response. We give a response. But between the stimuli and response, there is a space. In this space lies our freedom to choose, to react. And as we exercise this freedom, to that degree, we grow in our life. This is called as proactive approach. And what is reactive? Reactive means impromptu. Something happens and you react. You see what's the difference between humans and animals. Of course, many times we say intelligence, but another thing is animals, they work impromptu. They feel like doing something, they do it. There's no thinking behind it. That is called as reactive approach. So freedom to choose and subordinate our feelings to values, that is called proactive, and reactive is just acting through it without thinking. Now, what is this chosen values? We'll talk about these values which determine our responses in the third conversation. But for the time being, we'll just at least talk about the space. So how do we build this space and how do we utilize this space? For that, we need to understand human psychology. It's a subject matter of psyche. As over here a lady said, mindset, right? You said the point, mindset. So it's about a mindset, which means our psyche. And that psychology, Krishna speaks about in Bhagavad Gita. Let's take a look. Please everyone repeat after me. This is a great verse spoken by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, where he defines human psyche at 3 levels. Okay? Is it okay? All of us try to repeat. I'll say the line. Sattvam rajastama iti gunaha prakriti sambhavaha. That's nice, but there are so many of you. Can be a little louder. I'll be more nicer then, okay? Let's start again. Sattvam rajastama iti guna prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabhaho dehe dehinam avyayam. Krishna says there are 3 states of psyche which is known as Sattvam, Rajas and Tamas. Therefore, when I gave an example of cap seller, I gave 3 names, Tamo, Rajas, Rajo and Sattva. So you kind of map it, it remains consistent. So what are these qualities of the psyche of Sattva, Raja and Tama? Sattva or mode of goodness is a psyche of a proactive leader. Mode of passion and mode of ignorance is a psyche of a reactive leader. Let's try to understand what are the characteristics of this psyche. And after that, I will introduce you leaders acting according to this psyche. And let's see if it makes sense to all of you or not. Okay, let's start with this. First of all, you got to understand when Krishna is speaking about the psyche, everything about us is determined by these modes. How you speak, how you talk, how you dress, what you eat, what you like, what you dislike, everything. So therefore, although we have the same chemical composition, RNA, DNA, etc., whatnot, but in living beings, because of these three different psyche, our responses almost to a similar situation differs drastically. So let's take a look. What are these three things? So how do modes affect our responses? Goodness, the psyche of goodness or the mode of goodness, is a calm analysis before action. Remember the example of Satto? He thought about as the lady was making a point. Then there is passion, running in agitated mind. Such a person really gets angry very quickly. It doesn't think much about, she doesn't think much about. Ignorance, for such a person, fear is first response. Panic is first response. Have you seen such psyche? Anything happens, somebody becomes extremely panic and fearful. And you're saying there's nothing to fear about it. It's just because mode of ignorance is dominating in such a person. Now let's take a look at the characteristics of each quality. Quality of goodness. What would be the nature of such a person who has a dominating psyche of goodness? All right? And you can relate with yourself and the world around. Such a person at large would be often peaceful, which means content, and also happy. He has a sense of knowledge that I know what is right, what is wrong. He can see things in the right perspective. How many of you ever had an experience where you're talking to your friend or maybe family member and saying them, "आप समझ नहीं दे रहे हो, ये दृष्टिकोण सही नहीं है. Why don't you understand? Your perspective is wrong. Why are you looking at this way? Please look at this way." How many of you had that experience? And you're struggling within you. Why are you not looking at this way? Why are you stuck in that negative spot? There's a point, mode of goodness here, which means at that point of time, you were manifesting this quality of goodness where you will be able to see things in right perspective. Has a calm, clear, and creative thinking. Many of you said proactive leadership means clear thinking. So such a person has a calm, clear thinking, which means, unless you are calm and composed, can you really make a decision? And can you really be confident about the decision that you made? It's only possible when you have a composure. So such a psyche, a quality, helps one to find an effective solution to life's problems. Apparently, Steve Jobs had the predominance of this. Because when he was walking by, he saw somebody, a blind person, doing something on a touchpad. And he immediately began to think about the opportunities that technology can have. There's a point about helps one to find an effective solution to life problems. What is an entrepreneur? Anyone like to define what's an entrepreneur? Entrepreneurship or entrepreneur. Who is an entrepreneur? Someone who takes risks. Thank you. What else? There's more to it. These are all subsets of it. An entrepreneur is one who looks at the problems and he sees which problem can be resolved and turned into a product. An entrepreneur launches a product. So your innovation risk, it all comes from his ability to study the problems, to understand the problem, and from within the problem looks at which problem can be solved and resolved. And that's how Steve Jobs saw the opportunity here. That's our quality of goodness. Okay, fine. Calm, composed, peaceful knowledge. What would be the quality of passion? I guess picture speaks a lot. I don't know if I have to really explain, but I'll tell you a few things. This is all spoken by Krishna in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay? Such a person is very much driven by greed. He's too attached to prestige and is often over ambitious. And I'll give you some classic examples which you can relate quickly. He's often workaholic. He works very hard. Not only works hard, he often makes his people around him also work very hard. And one day he will wake up finding himself really burnt out. That's what mode of passion. Because he's greedy, he is also governed and influenced by envy, competitive, hasty, selfish, money-minded, and too attached to sensual pleasures. Such a person will often find himself difficult to stay focused for a long. Because of greed, he cannot. He will be always vibrating. That happens in quality of passion. What is quality of ignorance? By the way, have you seen such a situation around? These are real life situations. These are real life psyche, which is described. What is the third distinct psyche which Krishna speaks about? That is a mode of ignorance, or quality of ignorance. I guess the picture says for itself. I'm a victim. I need help. So, oversleeps, lazy, and crazy. For him, right is wrong, wrong is right. He indulges in self abusive acts such as drug addiction and considers it to be a great happiness. He postpones all his plans. He is often depressed, lonely, confused, panicky, insecure, fearful, and dependent on others for his happiness. Such a person actually can never make the right decision, because right is wrong, wrong is right. How many of you over here know about Ramayana? Something. Even if not, how many of you know something about Ramayana? Please raise your hand. Okay, good. We talked about three qualities: goodness, passion, ignorance. There are three examples from Ramayana. From Lanka, three personalities from Lanka that epitomizes these three qualities. Why am I quoting this? So that if you remember the names, you can immediately remember the qualities. So who would be the mode of goodness from Lanka? Thank you. Fantastic. Who represents mode of passion? Oh, you all are smart. You all nailed it. You got the concept of modes. And who represents ignorance? Fantastic. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I guess you all deserve a big round of applause. Give yourself a big round of applause. So now, when you remember Ravana, you can quickly remember the qualities of passion. And with Kumbhakaran, of ignorance, and with Vibhishan, of goodness. So now, so far, I shared wisdom with all of you. Now, I would like all of you to share your understanding with me. How do leaders functions in three modes? Okay, so let's start with leadership in ignorance. When a leader is situated in ignorance, what do you think? How would he? Imagine your manager. Imagine your manager or team lead is dominated by this psyche. How would he or she deal or behave? Any thoughts? Raise your hand and answer. How would he or she deal if your team lead or manager or leader is dominated by psyche of ignorance, a mode of ignorance? Any thoughts? Any thoughts? Not that difficult. Think out loud. What was the mode of ignorance? Lazy, crazy, oversleepy, fearful, panicky, right is wrong, wrong is right. How would such a person? Huh? Always in confusion, correct. Thank you for that. What else? Yes? Always postpone planning. Thank you for that. Somebody said here? Huh? Okay, wonderful. He leaves the situation, runs away. The moment he finds challenge, that's what postponing is. Yes, please? Take wrong decisions. Well, it's not that he would, he would often take always wrong decision like that. Yes? Yes? Yeah, he will blame others because victim, na. Because of you, our team is not growing. Just like the CEO example. He came and blasted off everyone. And I said it's a reactive leadership. Rather, he should have dealt in a proactive manner. Thank you for that. Wonderful. Yes, please. Doubtful, doubtful, doubtful. Okay. More of passion, goodness can also be. It's not that particular to ignorance. Okay, but it could be all the three. Yeah, but it can be common for all three in that way. Yes, please. Frustrated. Okay, frustrated, frustrated, hopeless. So let's take a look. First of all, when you look at him, उसको देखते ही आपको नींद आनी शुरू हो जाएगी. And you look at him, he looks so tired, and you feel like सोने में ही आनंद है. So he feels tired all over. His fatigue is mixed with nervousness, tension, or anxiety, as some of you said. All right. Often there is a sense of low self-esteem and life being a burden. And what else you everyone said, that is also correct. These are some inputs that I've added here. My question to all of you here is, imagine if you have a leader or a manager for you like this. What would be your progress? Would you have a progress or would be shunted? Would you become frustrated? Would your team become frustrated? Would there be any output from your team? Now imagine this is about the leader who is in this. Now imagine if you act in this mode, the same thing will happen to your team and to your project. Therefore, it's very important. So first of all, we are diagnosing, then we'll talk about how to change. Okay, what about leader? Okay, leader ignorance, there's a few more points. Undesirable moods, negative thoughts, becomes dependent and depression. Fine. What about leader in passion? Any thoughts? Passion is Ravana, right? Overconfident, yes. Who said overconfident? Okay, overconfident. I'll not listen to anyone. Okay, good, not listen to anyone. What else? Here, please. Dominating. Well, not dominating is wrong at all times, not like that. But very peculiar, yes? Arrogance, okay, arrogance, yes? Huh? Okay, you're going on the adjectives and synonyms now here. Yes, please? Ignorant. Well, that is mode of ignorance. You cannot make passion ignorant. What is passion? Passionate, workaholic. He will overwork. He would be the one, the time you're checking out. अरे जा रहे हो? अभी अभी तो आए हो? अभी बैठो 2 घंटे और? He is the one who will fill your life with task after task. What else? What else? He will himself work and he'll make you work extra. And because he doesn't make the right decision often, so his decisions are hasty. You remember the example of Rajjo? Became very angry and started throwing stones in that way. What else? Such a person is too attached to prestige, is too greedy, over ambitious. Like that, many factors can be looked at it. Take a look. He has a stress-driven mood and does have a sense of excitement and power. His physical energy, if he is high, is not so bad as ignorance. Even though he may face high levels of stresses, he tends to impatiently push himself towards the one objective after another. So mode of passion means cannot focus for long. Mode of ignorance, there is no focus only. And mode of passion will work, but will keep on changing the directions. What else in mode of passion? His efforts are infused with moderate to severe level of physical tension. And very important, such a person would not be able to pay attention to the needs of his team members because it's driven by self or selfish or egoistic desire. Like many of you said, egoistic, etc., highly ambitious. He will not be able to pay genuine attention to the needs of the team members around. So my question to all of you is, what would be the situation if you have a leader or a manager like you, this for yourself? What will happen to you? What would be your experience? How many of you, how would you feel if you have somebody who is just work driven but never pays any attention to your well-being? What will be the response? What will be your experience with such an individual working in a team? Yes, please? Stressful? Frustration? How many say frustrated? Because he doesn't understand my needs. I need a vacation. You know, such a person will never give you a vacation only. So many times corporates come and tell me, you know, our fellow doesn't give us the vacation only. What else? Worn out. What else? Self-doubt. Okay. What else? Fatigued. Another thing is, because here the project is driven by him largely, you would also not experience a growth. Because it is highly egoistic individuality. So here use and throw would be largely the concept. If you are meaningful to me, you continue. If not, you're not there. So here in this case also you will lack personal growth and professional growth. And overall experience of the team would be pathetic. What would happen if a leader is situated in psyche of goodness or mode of goodness? What would be mode of goodness? Any thoughts? Proactive. What do you mean by proactive in this context? As we've been discussing, mode of ignorance, mode of passion, what will happen in proactive, mode of goodness? What does it mean? Positive energy. What else? Efficiency, yes. Understanding of the team, genuine concern for the team, well-being of the team, not only about oneself or the project, but concern about others. What about other things? Yes. Clarity, having a clear vision. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Have a clear understanding of the problem, finding an appropriate solution to it. Okay, very nice. What else? Proactive. Yes, please. Progressive. Okay. Time manager. What would be your situation with if you are a team member of such a manager or leader? How many of you would feel more fulfilling and more inspired to work in such a team when you have a leader situated in goodness? How many of you agree with that? How many of you feel positive about being part of a team where a leader manager is situated like this? Please reverse this to yourself. If you are a leader manager tomorrow, and if you have this quality with you, your team members would align far better than you than with others. That's the subject matter with leader situated in goodness. Low tension, high energy, quiet control, serene, more alert, optimistic, etc. These are other qualities of moral goodness. So, what do you think about your behavior? We have the assessment sheets here, over there. So we're going to circulate out certain assessment sheets to all of you just to gauge yourself. I've taken 7 leadership traits. We'll pass on the sheet shortly. Please go through with it. I'll tell you what it is. Yeah, we can give it to, they can start circulating. What do you think of your behavior today? And I'll tell you how to give a rating to yourself. Think of your behavior. How many of you find yourself once in a while, I'm peaceful, fresh, full of energy, feeling happy, and like helping others? How many of you have this sense? Please raise your hand. Once in a while? Thank you. How many of you once in a while feel agitated, upset about life, and feel like I want to do so many things in my life? Please raise your hand. Mostly, most of us will have that. Okay? And how many at times you have felt enough is enough. I need some time for myself. Life is running too fast. I'm tired of everything. Why life is becoming such a burden? So, a very important point. If you notice your responses, we are influenced by all the 3 psyche: goodness, passion, ignorance. So, all of you who have got the sheet, please write your name on top and also please write the date. This is the first session, first assessment. In the last session, we'll have another assessment. So we'll talk about our journey and any changes have happened or not. So please keep this sheet with you. So we just talked about 3 psyche or 3 modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. How many of you agree we have an experience of all these 3 modes? How many of you agree? The point here is the 3 modes: goodness, passion, ignorance, or these 3 psyche. We have all 3 of them. And why we react differently in a similar situation at different times? Because in that particular time, one particular psyche, that is goodness, was prominent, so our response was calm and composed. Another time, we were dominated by passion, so our response was of anger and frustration. And if another time we were dominated by ignorance, our response was of panic and fear. You getting it? Now we all are orchestrated, dominated by these 3 psyches. So we'll car park this point. I'll come back to the solution in a short while. So all of you have got this leadership assessment tool. There are 7 qualities of a leader which I have highlighted. And for each quality of a leader, I have given 3 sub points. So if you go on the flip a page, or maybe I can show you here. So you have to mark each of the 7 traits. Before you mark the 7 traits, sub points आप mark करना शुरू करिए. If you agree with that point strongly, give it a 5. That's the maximum point. And if just doesn't agree for you, it doesn't exist within you, you say strongly disagree. So your points will vary from 1 to 5. So for every trait, for all the 3 points, give yourself a ranking from 1 to 5. 1, non-existent. 5, you have the most. And then find the average of those 3 points. Give it an average to that trait. So 5 is the highest, which means out of 15, you have to get an average, or whatever score, not average out of 15. Whatever your score will be, divided by 3, would be your average score for that quality. Is that okay exercise? Please go ahead and do it. This exercise is going to tell you what things you're good at as a leader, what things are lacking within me to be a good leader. And therefore, as the program progresses, we'll try to focus on those areas where we are lacking. So for each trait, you will have marks between 1 to 5 when you average it out, right? Got it? Okay. Was it a little helpful? Give you a little clarity about what it means to be a proactive leader, qualities need to be there. So, what this assessment teaches you, or what the result means. So, for all these 7 criteria or traits: vision, goal setting, decision making, problem solving, adaptability, flexibility, communication skills, team leadership, self improvement. How many of you agree these traits are an essential traits for a good leader? Please raise your hand. At least we can begin with that understanding. There's essential traits. Okay, so your overall leadership score indicates the following. If you got 4 to 5 for each of the traits or for any of the traits, that means you have a strong leadership qualities. This is, it means for all. But if in case you've got 4 to 5 on an average for any of the trait, you're doing good in it. And if in case you've got somewhere around 3, which means good, but there is still a scope for improvement. But if there are any traits for which you have scored less than 3, let's say around 1 and 2, that is something you want to circle for yourself and start focusing on it. And if you need any guidance for it or any help, that we can discuss after the session, or as anyways we'll be covering all of these as we progress with our discussions now. All right, so we're going to have 2 things. We'll have a short exercise and then maybe an opportunity for a role play, those who are interested. Let's do this exercise. So, managing challenging situations in life, we all got to face certain situations, got to make some tough decisions. How we make decisions, it depends on what psyche is dominant in you. Goodness, passion, ignorance. And to help you understand how our responses differ, I gave you an example of Socrates, a cool-headed guy, and I also gave an example of a cap styler, Satto, Rajo, Tamo. Tamo means I'm a victim, Rajo means angry, and Satto means calm and composed. So here, I would like all of you to pause. If you have your notebook, please take out your notebook, or maybe in the sheet that I gave you on the empty page, please go back and write the following. You have to pause and reflect any situation that you came across in your life, either in a personal life. Many of you don't have a professional background, so I will not give that an example, or in a student life. Any critical situation, any challenging situation. Can you quickly think of it? Just write down challenging situation dash that scenario, the title of it. Flip the page on the empty side, please write down. Recall a challenging situation that you ever faced in your life. Just quickly write down whatever you remember, 1 or 2 lines about it. Just think that much, don't think too much about it. How many of you have ever faced a challenging situation in your life? Please raise your hand. All of us have had some challenging situation. Just choosing a college was not less challenging, isn't it? You know, when you graduate from 12th. So, okay, got it? If that is done, the second question is, how did you respond to that situation which you had? The situation that you've written down, you have a situation written, how did you respond to it? What was your response? Was it in psyche of ignorance, passion, or goodness? Please write down. How was your response to that situation? Challenging situation. Don't think about simple situation, okay? Think about the most challenging situation that you faced. What was your response? You can write some adjectives for it. I'm not going to ask for your feedback, so you can share what you want to write on your notebook. It's yours. But I just want you to go through with that exercise and think. Do you think now sitting over here, there was a possibility for you to do different at that point of time? While sitting today at this point of time, reflecting on the situation, do you think you could have reacted differently and that situation would have occurred differently? How many of you agree? If I would have reacted differently, the outcome would have been different. Please raise your hand. So do you agree with the responses, how situation changed in our life? So what you could have done differently, please write down. What do you think you could have done differently for that? And is your response now a proactive response where you're able to think and react? Yes or no? Now, when you're writing an answer, I could have reacted differently. Is your response that you're writing today is a proactive response? For how many of you is a proactive response where you're able to think over and react? Please raise your hand. Now, if you think it's a proactive way, do you think the outcome would be quite different? That's how the life is governed by our proactive attitude and approach. So, can we change? Let's come to the solution part. Can we change our reactive attitude to proactive attitude? When Krishna diagnoses the psyche, identifies the problem, he also gives the solution for it. And he says, yes. To do so, we need to give up two things. We need to give up two things. I'm not going to tell you that entirely today, but slowly, we'll discuss it. Please say that out loudly what you need to give up. Two things we need to give up. What are the two things? First, please say loudly, attachment to wrong things. Can you go back to a piece of paper? Can you just think of what are the wrong things that you think you wish you could give it up, to which you are attached already, and you recognize they're wrong things? Can you just do it? You can just write it for yourself. You don't have to tell me. Krishna says two things you have to give up. Attachment to wrong things. To move from the reactive to proactive. And I'll prove you in a short while how it affects our thinking and attitude. Can you think of what could be that wrong thing that I wish I could give it up? And then Krishna says the second thing that we need to give up, please repeat loudly, aversion to right things. Everyone. Can you for a second think about the things which you think are right, but somehow I just can't do it? I find myself lazy for it, or just I don't feel like doing it. Can you think of, are there any good things which you know are there, but you struggle to do it? How many of you agree? Please raise your hand. Okay, so you just write down at your level of understanding. We'll gradually tell you what are those right things and the wrong things. Let me give you one example of the right things, as Bhagavad Gita teaches us, is about our diet, dress, environment, and association. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what kind of food we eat, it affects our psyche directly. The food that we consume also carry three kinds of psyche: ignorance, passion, and goodness. The kind of dress that we wear also creates a particular kind of psyche and influences us. The kind of environment we live in, keeping the house clean or unclean, everything have an impact on your mindset. And similarly, the kind of association. It is said the 5 people you regularly associate with, our personality is an average of those 5 people. Our association greatly affects us. So to move further, and the last example, we're going to give you a break, and then we'll have a role play and we'll continue. Before we go into a break, let me give one final case study on this topic. It's a very famous case study in the field of psychology of twin brothers, which means twins means they had the same genetic code, RNA and DNA. However, the group of psychologists studied these twins for next 15 years, and they came to a certain conclusion. And what was that conclusion? These twins were born to a father who was a drunkard, an alcoholic. So both the brothers saw father drinking alcohol, abusing the family members and everything. And both of them grew up to become something different. One brother grew up to become a successful professional, while the other brother grew up to become an alcoholic like a father. And now the psychologists, after studying both these personalities, gave some very interesting conclusion. When they both had similar situations, same father, same situation at the home, why one went on to become an entirely different person, whereas the other became exactly like a drunkard? So brother A was interviewed and was asked by the psychologist, why did you choose to become like your father? And he responded, well, this is what I saw. I saw my father drinking, I saw the alcohol bottles all around. So I thought this is what life is all about. Brother B was asked, why didn't you become an alcoholic like your father? He said, I saw my father suffering. I saw my mother suffering, and I saw my father abusing us. I made my mind, I am not going to become like my father, and I decided to create my own trajectory. And from this famous case study, psychologists gave two interesting terminologies to the mindset. This is called as fixed mindset. This is called as growth mindset. Fixed mindset is the reactive attitude or approach where they say, well, this is what it is. I cannot change. The life means only this much. Whereas the growth mindset is a proactive approach or mindset where such a person is willing to change himself and make a progress in one's life. There's that famous case study of twin brothers. We cannot control the circumstances, and we do not always get to choose what happens to us or around us, but we can try our best. Please repeat after me. Remember, who you are today is not who you have to be tomorrow. We all have the right to change. Well, I'm speaking now. I'm just giving you puppet to it. We all have the right to change and create a destiny as we have dreamt about. So for that, for the timing, we'll pause it now. We'll give you a 10 minutes break. And we'll come back after 10 minutes and we'll continue more on the solution part. Just before we break in, if anyone likes to take part in a drama, I would need 5 characters. We're going to have a role play after the break. So 5 characters, individuals can come and meet me. We're going to have a drama right here. All of you.
Welcome everyone. We are here to see the circumstances happen in the company. Tech Future, a mid-sized technology firm specializing in software solution, has been facing significant challenges in adapting to the rapidly evolving AI-driven solution market. The company has been experiencing decline sales, increasing competition, and international operations inefficiency. The CEO, who has been under immense pressure for, from the board and investors to turn things around, calls and urgent board meetings to address the situation. Now, see what is happening next. Now, we are here to introduce the CEO of this company.
We are here to have the board meeting in order to face the challenges we are having and to take out the solution from it. Let's start the board meeting. Okay, now we'll ask you what's going on.
I'm a customer relation manager here, and because of many things, we are losing our key clients. Customers are facing dissatisfaction and slow responses.
Manager, why are all these things going on? I don't want these things. Okay, you have to look into the matter. You.
So I am Vice President of Operations Report. So there are been production delays and quality issues are going down. So there are many.
Why the quality is going down?
Please listen, ma'am.
Why
So
would I listen? Why would I? You're the head of it. You're the manager of it. You have to deal with the same. Next, you.
Ma'am, I'm the Vice President of Marketing. As new startups were coming, that's why this quickly AI they guys adopt easily, but the marketing is going down.
We have the funds, okay? You have the technology. We have to develop the same. And you're in charge of it. What are you doing?
So we try.
Our market is going down. What the hell we are doing? You?
Ma'am, being a chief financial officer, our financial report shows a decline in our sales. Also, our company shares is also going down. Even though we are trying to developing the strategy to cut our cost.
What sort of strategies?
Ma'am, we are developing the strategy to cut our cost in order to increase our profitability.
Master in sales, and sales have the skills. I have opted you here because you have that tendency, okay? I don't want to listen all these stuffs. I want work to be done properly. Got it?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
So here we see the manager is very frustrated. Now we see the another situation where manager is calm and proactive. Now see the situation.
Please go ahead. So every one of you saw here is more or less the same example that I started our presentation with. It's a boardroom meeting, and the CEO really gets angry at all the, these are senior positions. They're not some tech lead or they're not some new recruits. They are senior managers. And the moment they begin to give their reasons, our CEO here, she becomes really frustrated and angry. So my question to you, next slide. Slide change, please. So my question to all of you here, just witnessing this exercise here, what do you think about the morale of the whole team? How the response of the CEO would have affected the morale of everyone who was part of the board meeting? Would they be really comfortable working around with the CEO who was not willing even to listen to the situation? And how can she pass on the buck or the blame to the respective department head? As a team means we're supposed to share the responsibility rather than asking the details of those challenges or understanding the market. She begins to express her outburst, anger and frustration. So what's your reaction to the scenario here? How many of you say working in such kind of a team with such kind of a CEO will be very difficult? Please raise your hand. All right. What else can you add to the situation here? This kind of a CEO's behavior? Anything? Or any suggestions or solution to the CEO in terms of what kind of response she could have either given? How she could have behaved otherwise? So it sounds like more of a proactive approach, isn't it? Mode of goodness, calm and composed. Was it our CEO here? What mode of consciousness was it? Goodness, passion, ignorance. Passion, right? Immediately the problem came, she began to outburst. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. All right. What else? Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Anything else anyone like to add to the scenario over here to the CEO? So we got to know what could be the right approach. What do you learn from the wrong approach? What else can you reflect from the wrong approach? Anything about what's happening with the rest of the team? Imagine if you had been one of the team members, and these are not the new recruits, these are senior level managers, management roles, and to receive such kind of a response after working for so long, it could be highly embarrassing and insulting. Anything about their situations, about the team situation? Anyone would like to reflect on that? They'll be demotivated, thank you. Anything else from anyone? What would you like to say about the team? What will be happening with the team right now? What would happen to the project? Yes, please. Efficiency will decrease, their cooperation will reduce. They'll not be willing to cooperate much because they have not been heard. What will happen to the whole project and the whole company? Would it progress or would it reduce or would it go downwards? Now, go downwards not because the team was not capable enough. Go downward because one member of the team who is into the position of leadership did not react it properly. Yes or no? This is how the response changes. Thank you for that. Let's take a look at the same scene. The CEO walks out of the boardroom. CEO will enter again. And now the CEO is going to react differently. So let's welcome the CEO of the Tank, some Crunch Brunch. I don't remember the name of the company. Let's welcome the CEO. The CEO enters the boardroom. Yes, please go ahead.
I was looking on the reports that our team, like a company, is not doing well. What are the reasons? I want to hear, the reasons from you all.
Ma'am, I want to address that our competitors provide more innovative AI trends in the market, and that's why we are losing the customers.
Okay, we will try to cope with it. We need to have a team for it. We need to have a funds for it. We will look into the matter.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you.
So, ma'am, there are being production delays and quality control issues which have been resulted as complaints of customers. Therefore, sales is decreasing a lot.
Okay, we will address the needs of the customers as well on a very high rate, and we'll look into the matter. We require more team effort in it. We'll do the same. Okay.
New companies, new startups were coming, and they guys were giving it to less price. That's why we guys were losing our markets.
That means we need to innovate. Okay, we'll look into the matter, and I hope so that you will also do the same with us. Thank you. Yeah.
Ma'am, now we are focusing to increase our productivity, but the thing is that we are the operating cost of our product is too much high. and that is directly declining our profit.
Okay, we have to look into the stats for it. We have to manage our marketing and the sales thing and the price conductivity. Okay, we will do it. We will do it for sure and make our company to the best reach.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now, in this situation, what will you see and observe in this situation, you guys? Can you tell me someone कि किस तरीके की सिचुएशन इस सिचुएशन जब आप देखिए तो आपको क्या लगता है कि कैसे ये सिचुएशन डिफरेंट है पहली सिचुएशन से?
So there's far much more participation. Please continue.
ओके तो आपको लग रहा है कि जो एम्प्लॉयज़ है वो पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं इस सिचुएशन में ज़्यादा इन कंपैरिजन टू लास्ट सिचुएशन, तो क्या कोई मुझे बता सकता है कि उसका क्या कारण है कि पिछले सिचुएशन में जो एम्प्लॉय थे वो पार्टिसिपेट नहीं कर रहे थे और इस सिचुएशन में कर रहे हैं? ओके ओके, उनकी बात सुनी जा रही है। ओके, तो हमको पिछले सिचुएशन और इस सिचुएशन को देख के कहीं ना कहीं ये चीज़ समझने को मौका मिल रहा है कि जो सीईओ है या फिर जो हेड है, जो लीडर हैं, उनके बिहेवियर में डिफरेंस होने के कारण एम्प्लॉय के बिहेवियर में भी डिफरेंस आ रहा है। ओके, सो क्या सारी चीज़ें हैं जो एक लीडर के अंदर होनी चाहिए, जो आप लोग को अभी लग रहा है इस सिचुएशन को देख करके, क्या सारे पॉइंट्स होने चाहिए? सो दिस इज़ द सिचुएशन। हम देख रहे हैं कि कैसे बिहेवियर चेंज होने की वजह से, सीईओ के बिहेवियर चेंज होने की वजह से, एक समथिंग कुछ अलग क्वालिटीज़ होने की वजह से आपके एम्प्लॉयज़ जो है एक मतलब बुरी सिचुएशन में भी वो उस सिचुएशन को हैंडल कर रहे हैं। ना केवल सीईओ हैंडल करने के तैयार है बल्कि एम्प्लॉयज़ भी उसके साथ में काम करने के लिए तैयार है। तो सेम सिचुएशन है मगर उसको हैंडल करने का तरीका डिफरेंट होने के कारण सिचुएशन कितनी कामली हैंडल हो सक रही है और उसका सोल्यूशन भी निकल सक रहा है। मगर फर्स्ट सिचुएशन हम लोग जब देख रहे थे सिचुएशन सेम थी जैसे सेकेंड सिचुएशन में थी, सेकेंड केस में थी, सिचुएशन बिल्कुल सेम थी मगर वहाँ कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं निकल पा रहा था। क्यों? क्योंकि यहाँ कोई बात सुनने के लिए तैयार नहीं था, यहाँ पर वो अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं थी। और यहाँ पे क्योंकि अंडरस्टैंडिंग है जिस कारण से हम लोग ये देख पा रहे हैं कि सिचुएशन को हैंडल किया जा सकता है, सोल्यूशन निकाला जा सकता है। तो ये कहीं ना कहीं मॉरल ऑफ द स्टोरी है कि हमको सुन करके जब हम दूसरों की बातें सुनते हैं, समझते हैं और अपनी बातें रखते हैं तभी कहीं ना कहीं सिचुएशंस का प्रॉब्लम का कोई भी प्रॉब्लम का वहाँ पे सोल्यूशन निकलता है, वरना कोई सोल्यूशन निकल सकता है, सिर्फ बहस होती है।
Thank you. This is classic example of reactive versus proactive. So I hope you're able to get the depth of this topic, either be your student life, later on professional life, even your personal life, your relationships are drastically influenced how you react and react based on three psyches: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So let's give a big round of applause for all our future CEO, future marketing head, tech head, and moderators. So Unnati Sahu, so CEO was Unnati Sahu. Kaushiki, right? Yeah, our moderator was Kaushiki. Big round of applause, everyone, please. Rakhi Rangwani. So that's Rakhi Rangwani. We had Nishant. Okay, who is Nishant? Oh, Nishant. We had Priyam Mishra? Priyam Mishra, okay. And we had Abhinav. So big round of applause for everyone for their courage to do this role play. Thank you. All right, let's move forward and come to the conclusion of this. The last section of our today's presentation is inspirational stories of proactive leaders. When we talk about this subject matter, we all need certain role models in our life. Role models act as a compass who bring us back onto the right track. And I'm going to give you 3 role models in 3 different domains of our life. First is the social or political life. Second is our professional life. And third would be our personal life. Let's begin with the first case study or first example, role model of proactive leadership in a social or a political life. Example is Nelson Mandela. Leading with vision and resilience. Some of you might know, may not know. I'll not go into details, but tell you in summary. This man, Nelson Mandela, who born and brought up in South Africa, he had spent 27 years behind the prison for no crime. The only crime was he was fighting for the right of the blacks. And it took more than 3 decades of his struggle to destroy or to finish apartheid. Apartheid means a legalized racial discrimination in South Africa. He was released back in 1994, and then 94 and 95 beginning. For the first time in the political history of South Africa, there were democratic elections, and Nelson Mandela became the first president of South Africa. Man who had such a resilience, had a vision, and had an ability to bridge gaps. He brought all the other parties who were even opponents, brought them all together and created a first democratic party, moved the country out of the apartheid, which means legalized racial discrimination, to a country where everyone had equal rights to live. That's the story of Nelson Mandela. This is not reactive lifestyle. There's somebody who's really living with a vision and willing to take a risk. That's what Nelson Mandela and political and social life. And technology, Steve Jobs, I've spoken briefly today. I'll be coming to Steve Jobs' case studies in the future also. Here I'd like to give an example of Elon Musk. As much as Steve Jobs have been known in the last 3 decades, this century belongs to Elon Musk. A man who is willing to take risk, a man who is willing to follow his dreams, a man who is willing to find solutions. Now he's working hard to have, interoperability, or even he's planning to have a civilization on Mars. That's the project he's working on. And he has got some interesting disruptive products. He's got the first electric vehicle, Tesla. Then he has got this, what you call as spaceship, SpaceX is working. And then he has got this satellite communication also, right? Starlink, like this. Many, many innovative products he has got. And if you look at his life and history, it is just until recently when he actually started making money. Otherwise, for a long, long time, he was just consuming money of his investors without giving any profit. At one point in time, even investors wanted to back out of his Tesla. And eventually it became successful. And this man has got that dream and vision. This is proactive. This is about the technological or the professional life. Let me give you my favorite example for the personal life in terms of navigating life's challenges. Arjuna, how many of you know about this character of Arjuna? Please raise your hand. So all of you are familiar with a little bit about Mahabharata. Thank you for that. In case of Arjuna, he was the best archer in the world, the most skilled person. Before he came to the battlefield of Kurukshetra, this was not the first time he was battling with Duryodhana or Karna. He had fought with them in the previous times and he had defeated them. He had no reason to become fear-stricken. Yet, at the sight of the huge army of the Kauravas, when he asked Krishna to drive his chariot from his side to the side of the Kauravas, Krishna drove his chariot and brought in front of his elders like Dronacharya, Kripacharya, and of course the most important Bhishma Pitama. Arjuna became confused and bewildered. How many of you had a situation in your life where you don't know what is the right decision and both decisions that you have look both right? How many of you had that? Ye bhi karunga sahi hai, wo bhi karunga sahi hai. There are 2 kinds of crisis. Only 2 kinds of crisis. First is called moral crisis. Second called ethical crisis. What is moral crisis? Where one solution is moral and second solution is immoral. Making a choice is pretty easy, moral versus immoral. Ethical crisis, for which you all raise your hand, where both the solutions are correct. And making a solution or finding a solution when both the solutions are correct is very, very difficult. And similarly, Arjuna was faced with ethical crisis. He had 2 choices between Kula Dharma versus Varna Dharma. Kula means he belonged to the same family, Kauravas. He's going to fight. It was a fratricidal war. He had to fight with his own relatives. I should be protecting my relatives. I should be protecting my teacher. Should I kill my teacher? This is not a cricket match. This is life and death. Should I do that? That was the first thing. On the other side, he had his dharma. He has his kshatriya, which means he had to protect. He was the party, he was a side, he had the members on his side who had been abused, who had been violated, their chastity, their integrity had been violated by the side which was on the other side, Kauravas. For an example, imagine a particular shop gets robbed and you happen to be the owner of the shop. You call the SP from the nearby station. The SP comes to the place and he happens to capture the thief who was just about to run robbing your shop. And when he catches and then he realizes, अरे ये तो मेरी ताई का लड़का है और चाची का लड़का है, whatever लड़का. Now that is Kula Dharma. I should be protecting my relative, but I have my duty as an SP. I should protect the innocent. So what should that inspector do? Should follow his duty, which means his duty is as a Kshatriya. So here in this point of time, at least Arjuna was really confused, and therefore he sought shelter of Krishna, asking Krishna, my dear Lord, what should I do? Should I fight or should I quit? And at that point of time, he said this very famous shloka. And this is what going to mark our beginning of this whole discussion, although we start with the proactive. Let's take a look at it. It's a little Sanskrit here. Let's see if you all can recite behind me. Arjuna Vacha Karpanya Dosho Pahata Swabhava. Fantastic, huh? You already can read Sanskrit. I was thinking it'll be difficult. Let's try again. Karpanya Dosho Pahata Swabhava. Prachami Tvam Dharma Samuda Chetaha. Yashrehasya Nishitam Bruhitan Me. Shishyastiham Shadimam Tvam Prapannam. So simple Sanskrit, Shishyas te aham, I want to become your student. Shadimam Tvam Prapannam, I surrender to you, so I accept you as my teacher. All right. Why Arjuna is accepting Krishna, who actually has become his charioteer? Why Arjuna is accepting Krishna as his teacher? He says, because of my miserliness, weakness of heart, or unstable mind at this point of time, I am not able to make the choice. Should I fight? Should I not fight? All right. Then he says, Prachami Tvam Dharma Samuda Chetaha. And I, Prachami is Prashna Puchana. Tvam is unto you. I am here to ask a question to you. What was Arjuna's question? Before his question, let me ask you a question. What is dharma means? How many of you say you belong to Hindu dharma? Raise your hand. Fantastic. All agreed? Let me come back, I'll bring all of you here. Arjuna says, Prachami Tvam. I ask you a question. Dharma, Samuda Cheta. I am confused. What is my dharma? So do you think Arjuna on the battlefield asking Krishna, Prabhu, batao, main Hindu hu, Muslim hu? Then what is dharma? Then why did you say you belong to Hindu dharma? And now then Hinduism is not a dharma. What is dharma? Dharma is not religion. Let me make this very clear up front. How many of you, when we discussed today, talking about three psyche, did you find the concept as scientific and logical because it's universal fact regardless of you belong to whichever religion, caste, color, creed? How many of you agree? Raise your hand. Yes or no? Where is that subject matter discussed? This is being discussed in Bhagavad Gita because some of you might be wondering why the MBA student have to learn about leadership and management from a religious book. This is not a religious book. That's the first thing you got to understand. Let's redefine what dharma is. Dharma is not religion. Do you know what religion means? Let me define that word for you. Religion comes from the Latin word religio. Religio means a group of people having a common faith. A group of people having a faith forms a religion, which means political parties are the greatest religions. I repeat again. That means the political parties are the greatest religion because anyone joins any political party, they vouch to adhere to their inherent constitution. And if they don't follow, they're asked to leave. Is that making sense? So if we just say Bhagavad Gita is a dharmic book, or dharmic book is correct. If we just say it's a religious book, I'm not saying it doesn't talk about religion. But if we just call it a religious book, then it becomes a book of faith. It is not a book of faith, it's a book which teaches us lessons for our life. Arjuna was not asking Krishna a question, which dharma do I belong to? He asked the question, what is my duty? The root word meaning of dharma is duty. And Krishna comes, or Krishna teaches this book, or teaches wisdom through this book to teach us about our duties. So one of the duties is, responsible leadership. That's where the concept of servant leadership is so much discussed in Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, the first topic we chose at proactive leadership. I hope this makes it clear. So what is my dharma? We have clarified. So there are three kinds of dharma that Krishna speaks about. First is irresponsible action. That is called as adharma. Then there is a second that is called as dharma, which means responsible action. We today speaking about responsible action. We'll speak about this later on a little bit. And the third, which is the actual subject matter of Bhagavad Gita, is paradharma. That is a spiritual responsibility. That we'll discuss later on. But nonetheless, I hope you got this concept of three levels of leadership here. So, to conclude our today's discussion, let's offer this meaningful prayer. Because after all, there is some prayers in Bhagavad Gita. So this is my favorite. Everyone please repeat after me. Oh Lord, give me the courage to change the things which can, ought to be changed. The serenity to accept the things which cannot be changed. And the wisdom to know the difference. So with that, we come to the conclusion for today's topic, where we talked about how people or why people react differently. We discussed about three psyches. What are the three psyches? Ignorance, passion, goodness. What were the examples discussed to explain these three psyches? Okay, Vibhishan, Ravana, you remember the Ramayana. But what are the case studies? You remember the sweet wife or somebody? Whose wife? Socrates. And then we talked about Topi Penane Wala? Three cap sellers, like that. And then we had a CEO role play here, the angry CEO, and then proactive and reactive. So we talked about proactive and reactive approach. Our freedom lies in space between. How our responses are determined based on these three psyches. How leaders act according to different modes. We talked about it. We saw the role play also. And what are the qualities of these modes? And can I change this? Yes. Of course, I didn't go much in the details of the solution. We'll go through. Our next presentation will be on the topic of self-care. And the third topic would be procrastination. Gradually, we'll introduce the solution because it involves little lifestyle changes. So Krishna says, yes, you can bring about the change. You need to give up two things. What are the two things you got to give? First thing? Attachment to? Attachment to wrong things. And I said, you figure out what are the wrong things. I didn't tell anything. You look at it. And second solution? Aversion to right things. Please keep it with you and look at the world around. And finally, we had a case study of a twin brothers. Brother A, brother B, who had a drunkard father. One went on to become very successful, where the other became a drunkard. Fix-it versus growth mentality. We're not supposed to be what we are today. We should not get covered or influenced by the situation, but we have the freedom to react as wish to. With that, I thank you all for your kind attention. Hare Krishna. Mother Geetika or maybe one of the staff would send you the link where you can solve the MCQs. That's available on our website, evolvepune.com. You'll get the link for it. Just sign up for the course. You can sign up with your Google ID, and then you'll have the access to the course. The video lecture would be available, presentation would be available, and then you have a quiz to solve. 10 points, 10 questions. So this is part of your assessment for your credits. So whenever they announce it, you'll get access to it, okay? Have a good day and have a wonderful week ahead.